The brand is very relaxing and mellow and calming.
Therapeutic, spa, meditation.
Exactly. And I tried to do that first too, actually, until I realized absolutely no one comes to me for relaxation.
Right.
They get relaxation, but I am not a subdued, relaxed kind of person. I am a loud, flamboyant, like you come to me because you want some sort of energy.
Because you want to unlock rapid results.
Exactly.
That's what you're coming for.
Let's talk tails.
An award-winning certified hypnotherapist, rapid results coach, and international speaker. This Tales with Taylor guest has over 20 years of experience as a productivity consultant, corporate trainer, and organizational leadership professor. Her signature Be Limitless formula for achieving anything you want is inspired by the belief that everyone already has what they need within them. It's Andi Hess. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Taylor. How are you?
Doing great, thank you. So tell me, what's a tale we should be telling ourselves more?
Oh my goodness. That you can do whatever you want. I mean, so there's so many tales. There's so many tales we should be telling ourselves. Basically everything you're not telling yourself now, right? Most of us spend a lot more time thinking about what we don't want to happen than what we do want. That's actually the first step of that Be Limitless formula is what do you want? Tell yourself that tale.
Okay.
Right? There's a great starting point.
And then my thing, I always say it's not real unless it's written down. And so perhaps write down what you want. Is there a benefit you feel to writing things down and actually putting them out there into the universe?
Yeah, 100%. Writing is a direct line into the subconscious. So I use hypnosis to kind of get it all the way in, deep down into the subconscious, the way that we want. But writing definitely helps with that. It tells your parts of your brain that you're not aware of that you want this thing or that to pay attention to this thing.
Excellent. And, hypnotherapy, I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions and there's even, perhaps even some stigmas against it. They think that it's just mind control. So for those who maybe are less educated in hypnotherapy, can you give me an idea of truly what that modality is and how can it benefit people?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question. Get it all the time, of course. Because most people haven't had any introduction to hypnotherapy other than maybe a movie or a stage show. And so of course, right, that's what you're going to think. But in reality, hypnosis is a state that we all go through at least twice a day. Like if you've ever driven home and not known how you got there, that's hypnosis. We call that highway hypnosis or environmental hypnosis. But that's the state. And so if you think about that, your conscious mind is distracted. But your subconscious mind is paying attention the entire time. That's why you don't die, because if something out of the norm happens, it will call your conscious mind back, right?
Right.
And so what's really important to understand is your subconscious mind only has one job, and that's to protect you. So it will not take direction from someone on anything that it does not believe is good for you. We have a saying that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. And so what we do as hypnotherapists is we use this incredibly beneficial, normal, natural learning state. And we talk to the subconscious mind in a way that allows it to, get that conscious mind distracted out of the way. All the reasons, all the logic, all the, but it's scary, all those things. And to tell your subconscious mind what you actually want to have happen. So hypnosis is the state of being. It's actually that same state as when you wake up from a dream and you know you were there, but it's kind of disappearing a little bit. It's that same state. So we use that state, that learning state, in a therapeutic way. To make changes that you want to make in your habits and your behavior and your identity and your thoughts, things like that.
Can you give me an example of some changes you've helped people achieve?
Absolutely. So there are so many uses for hypnosis, and they range from things that are really kind of singular. So for example, misophonia is a disorder where certain sounds really bug you more than bug you. Like, yeah, I'm sure you know somebody who can't stand the sound of chewing,
Right.
or loud, obnoxious beeping or something like that. Most of us, especially those of us who've worked in retail, can, put that beeping into the background and not be bothered by it. But for some people, it's incredibly disturbing, and like every little sound in their environment becomes overwhelming. So you can use hypnosis to tell the subconscious mind to do that thing where you put it in the background, basically, right? To disregard those particular sounds, because really what your subconscious is trying to do is give you a message. There's something to pay attention to here, right? So you tell it, thank you, I've gotten the message. That's not actually something I need to pay attention to, and we can move on. So there's things like that, the typical kind of habit change stuff, your stop smoking, stop nail biting, things like that. But really my favorite are some of the sort of deeper things. I mentioned the first step in my Be Limitless formula is really vision. And one of the biggest challenges I see is that we're not often very honest with ourselves on what we want. I have a coach who likes to say, we water down our vision because of what we think is acceptable to want, and watered down visions lead to watered down lives.
Right.
And the thing is, your subconscious mind knows. It knows that that's not what you want, right? Like, its only job is to know you. And so when you try to convince yourself that, oh no, I don't need that, I just need this, and this is good enough, you now have your subconscious mind going, well, you're lying. And so working with particularly women and particularly entrepreneurs who have big dreams and know that the only thing really standing in their way is themselves, that's really my favorite, because we can get into all the limiting beliefs and all the ways that those beliefs are causing behaviors that don't do you any good. And we can reprogram those.
Excellent. So you mentioned a little bit already of your demographic that you work best with, or that you prefer to work with, and you said that was women entrepreneurs. What is it about women entrepreneurs that just gets you going and that you enjoy working with?
Yeah, so I like to say, and I have clients from all walks of life. I've done everything from, the nail biting to golf game kind of stuff, to life coaching and business coaching and everything. I like women entrepreneurs. In particular, I like women in their second act. Usually we get to this point in life where there's either a career change or a relationship change, or the kids grow up and move out, and all of a sudden it's like, maybe it's time for me.
Yeah.
And so it's in that scenario, there's so much fun in the opportunity and the possibility of watching someone wake up to what they can do, and helping them see that they can actually do it, that it becomes so exciting for me, because really the whole foundation of that is deciding to be honest with yourself about what it is you actually want, and that your wants are actually allowed and good and necessary and useful and all of these things. And so I just think there's this really fantastic shift that goes on at a certain point where we wake up and say, it's time. It's time to do all of this stuff that I don't even know why, but I need to do it.
Yeah. Well, I know you didn't take your time. You famously have said to people, that you've already checked everything off of your bucket list, and either you have the best skincare in the world, and or you're still very young and you accomplished that. So tell me, what was that journey like, and what were some of your favorite things from that bucket list that you completed?
Oh my goodness, what a big question. So it's funny because I do put that in there. Into my bio. I checked off my entire bucket list by the time I was 37. And I think the reason that I continue to actually talk about that is because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, actually, right? So we are very much taught to make ourselves a checklist and then run really hard at it, right? Especially like like you mentioned, my first job out of high school, I was a productivity consultant for Franklin Covey. I've been obsessed with productivity and self-improvement and efficiency and how do you make yourself better? I mean, since I was like born, basically.
That's excellent.
Yeah, it is. But you get to this point where you're like, okay, I know how to do things, right? Like if I decide I want to do this thing, okay, I did it. And what ended up happening for me is I was actually in a hospital in Serbia for 7 days.
Okay, that's a tale in itself.
That is a tale. So one of my original like bucket list, my biggest goal in life actually was to find a job that paid me to travel.
Okay. I feel like a lot of people can relate to that
exactly.
desire.
Exactly. And I was from a family that didn't travel a lot. We were pretty poor growing up. My parents had traveled with their families as they had moved around. Okay. And so when they settled in Arizona, they settled, right?
Okay.
And
so are you from Arizona originally?
Born and raised here.
Rare. A rarity here, people.
I know. Because you have to be insane to stay here, right?
Oh, no. I love it here. I moved here and I'm not moving.
Everyone who moves here says that. Yeah. But so anyway, yeah. So I just thought that was such a stretch for someone like me. Like people like me don't get to travel for life. And so, I became a professor, and one of the specific things that I made sure that I did was build out a study abroad, a set of study abroad programs actually. And I was super lucky. We had an amazing, crew in our unit and a very robust study abroad culture. And study abroad had changed my life. Actually, that was the moment I'm on the plane and I'm landing in Greece and I'm like, people like me don't get to travel. This plane is going to crash. Like,
oh no.
That's how sure I was that this would never happen, right? And so when I did and it changed my life, I was like, this is what I have to do. I have to make sure other people, other students know that this is for everyone. It doesn't matter, who you are. And I did have kids, I'm not as young as I look, but I did have kids when I did that too. And so it was really important to me to show the other, moms that they could still pursue their own goals as well. So anyway, so I did this. So I ended up running programs in Milan and in Prague and in Dublin. And my signature program was in Croatia and Bosnia and Serbia. And by the end, I had been to 39 out of the 48 countries in Europe.
Wow.
And so I'm in Serbia, one of my favorite places. And I got sick and I'm in the hospital. And of course there's no one who speaks English, right? So I have my like local guides and everything who come and help me translate and whatever. But for the most part, I'm sitting there by myself with just a lot of time to think. And I realized as I sat there was this moment of like, I hit my goal already, right? Like it's been 6 years that I've spent 6 months a year in Europe. I'd say I can check this one off, right?
Right.
And I realized that I just hadn't stopped running long enough to realize I'd already like checked off my goals, right? So funny enough, this was 2019 and they had to fly me out of Serbia and they flew me home and I ended up back in the hospital here a couple months later, discharged the day before I had to fly back to Europe for another study abroad program. And I had 2 more international trips still scheduled, but it was 2019 and I said, I'm going to not travel next year.
Right.
Luckily.
The whole world, didn't travel the next year.
Luckily, I bet you I would have still...
Who knows, you could have had COVID.
I bet you I still would have said yes if somebody had asked me at that point. Oh. So, the world was like, no, you're gonna stick with this. And what happened was I realized that I had checked off this whole list and it was like, now what? I'm 37. And at the same time, in the spring of 2020, my last kid left home. So she moved out, and all of a sudden we're all stuck at home, right? And it's now just me and my husband, and I'm like, well, I'm going to get a dog because otherwise it's just talking to my husband. And so let's not do that. So I went and got a dog.
What kind of dog? What's the name?
Oh my God. I could talk about my dog for the whole hour. So Butters is the baby that I got that time. And he is like my soulmate dog. We actually have the same birthday.
Oh, super cute.
He's adorable. And I now have 2. And that was one of the things I couldn't do when I was traveling all that time, right? So I was like, if there's a time, it's got to be now. And so I spent 3 years sitting there with my dogs, asking myself what was next. And to be 37 and obsessed with self-improvement and growth and not able to come up with any sort of vision of the future that meant anything was really disconcerting.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'd always just been, well, I have to achieve. And once that need to achieve was gone, it was like, what do I do now? I'm pretty sure I've got, another 37 years left.
It's like an athlete when they're done, off the court or off the field. It's like, all right, now what do? I only know being an athlete. Like you only do chasing those goals and you're like, okay, I did them all. Now what?
Exactly. And it's so funny because I had always kind of thought of like, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, when you come back to Earth after that, how do you live the rest of your life knowing that the coolest thing you could ever do is done?
Yeah.
You're never going to top that, right?
Right. It's just like you never want your first book to be a bestseller. You never want your first movie to be a blockbuster. Yeah.
It's like the curse of the sequel kind of thing. And so I started doing really the only thing I could think of, which is that I sat there and I used hypnosis because I had been doing self-hypnosis since I was 10. I used hypnosis to begin working on myself, to go into vision, to go into meditation, to go into subconscious. And I began to kind of dig out every trigger that I could find. So anytime anything happened and I felt even a twinge of emotion, I was like, ooh, that's an emotion. Let's check that out. And it took 3 years, but I went through this whole period of like, this is so stupid because there's no help for it. What am I supposed to do? Go complain that I have everything I want and contentment's not enough? The books don't cover this. There's no like self-help book for, You
made it, now what?
Right, yeah. Exactly. And so,
sounds like when you need to write, huh?
Well, it's like, if you think about it at that point, and you're looking and you're like, your only options at this point are to go become a monk, right?
Right.
Because that seems to be, after you've had, your shamanic death or your spiritual enlightenment or whatever, if you don't need the buy yourself some flowers book, then maybe you just go be a monk. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. Puppies and all.
Right. Priorities.
But it was very much like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And so, it was in that period of 3 years of healing myself that I really got to a point where I was like, hey, this hypnosis thing that I've been doing, this is really cool. I ended up leaving my job as a professor and, I was doing a lot of career counseling and things like that with the students anyway, as they moved from college to career. And I was like, I'm going to do coaching. I'm going to go out on my own. Kids are gone now again. So I have all this flexibility, and I'm going to go out on my own and do coaching. And as I started coaching, I noticed, right, that, my clients, they'd come to me with their problems, and the problem is never the thing. The problem is your thought about the thing. The problem is, your fear, or I want to, I've got clients who want to date, or clients who want to start a business or whatever. And it's like the fear and I can't stop myself. And, this email has 27 I'm sorry's in it. And, I'm not getting the results I want. And I started noticing that, this wasn't the pragmatic coaching stuff. And because I had gone through all this healing myself, I started offering some of those clients, hey, do you want to do some visualization around this? Do you want to do some hypnosis? I can do some sort of guided meditation for you. And the ones who said yes just had the most massive and instant transformations. And the ones who said no 2 years later were still working on a lot of the same stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point I was like, I forgot how much I loved this when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
10-year-old me was like, you mean I can change my brain
How
while
did you
I
first
sleep?
get that introduced at 10 years old? Like, I feel like hypnotherapy only as of
Yep.
recently has become, more known, more aware,
Yep.
so,
So
we grew
I
up in a
was-
similar time. So I'm kind of like, okay, how did you first get in tune with hypnotherapy?
Yeah, I was in the 80s at some point. I found a self-hypnosis cassette tape at a garage sale
Okay.
when I was like 10 years old. And 10-year-old me was like, you mean I can change my brain while I'm sleeping?
Yeah.
That sounds like the laziest, coolest thing I've ever heard.
Good old yard sales.
Man. And I listened to that tape every night until I was 21.
Tapes. It means like there's actually
Cassette
film
tape.
in it. Sometimes it gets messed up. You got to fix it with a pencil.
Exactly.
Ask an
Now-
older sibling.
I was so pissed when I would get in bed and it wasn't rewound and all that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Be kind. Rewind.
Exactly. Oh, good times. But yeah, I listened to it every night until I was 21, and then I lost it, and I had to wait for the internet to be invented so I could find it again, and all that stuff. But I realized, there's this tool.
Yeah.
There's this tool that I'm lucky enough to have been familiar with and had really amazing results with. And I was like, I want to go learn as much as I can about that tool
Mm-hmm.
so that I can then do my coaching with the subconscious help, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to get your conscious and your subconscious going. And so, so I went back to school for hypnotherapy and I loved every moment of it. And we're going on 3 years now, and it's just been amazing.
That's excellent.
I get to meditate all day, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's
And
pretty
get
cool.
yourself in the right mindset for whatever challenge you're about to do. And so if someone was wanting to do hypnotherapy, like you said, you've been doing since you were 10, what are some of those first steps? Or like, how does someone first get started, with doing self-hypnotherapy?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And, it's so good now. There's so many tools now that there weren't when
People
I
have
was
it
growing
easy
up.
now. You can,
Right?
go on YouTube,
There's
watch a
there's
video.
no rewinding, right?
Yeah, there's no rewinding. You can pinpoint the exact section you want to review. Yeah. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my biggest tip is to start with guided meditations, which
guided
is hypnosis.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people will come to me and they say, well, I can't meditate. I can't make my brain be quiet, right? And the thing is, you're not supposed to be able to make your brain be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So most people who worry about doing something like this worry that they're going to mess it up.
Mm-hmm.
And so my biggest message, right, you can find guided hypnosis or guided meditations on, like you said, on YouTube, or Insight Timer is a great one, or, I have a meditation library that I provide for, anybody who's in my world. And the most important piece of that, though, is to know that you can't do it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Your ability to visualize, your ability to pay attention, to remember, to stay awake, to stop your mind from wandering, none of that matters. None of that affects how hypnosis works for you.
Okay.
So if you go back to that idea of the car, the hypnosis,
Mm-hmm.
the highway hypnosis, right? It doesn't matter what your conscious mind is doing. It can be off wherever it wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
Your subconscious is still there paying attention. And so I think that more people, if they just realize that they really couldn't do it wrong,
Mm-hmm.
would be a lot more open and willing and able to use the self-hypnosis type tools that we have now, which are just everywhere.
And I think it's a matter of just giving it a try. I know I was one of those resistant people, just there's no way I could just sit quiet that long. And, it's just negative resistance, excuses. And, at the end of the day, you just got to kind of be like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? I spent 5 minutes sitting alone, or 10 minutes sitting, so sometimes it's just give it a shot and be amazed,
Yeah, and I think there's the other part of that, right? That's a very good point. We have so many ideas about what we should or shouldn't be doing,
Mm-hmm.
and all this stuff. But the other part of it is this idea that it's oh, that's very woo, and there's no science behind it or anything. And the thing about it is, that's just not true. You can, for example, you can look at an Olympic athlete visualizes themselves on the court, like 1,000,000 times more than they're actually on the court, right? That's the same thing as hypnosis. So your brain doesn't know the difference between something you experience in real life and something you imagine, especially the more detail you can imagine it with. And so, by the way, that's what happens when you're doing anxiety. You're actually making yourself go through whatever bad thing you're worrying about. I'd really only rather go through it once if it happens, but
it's maybe just a power of like, okay, stop.
Exactly.
Let's reverse this visualization and then say, no, the positives of what could happen. Yeah.
Exactly. But nobody thinks, Olympic athletes are woo because they're like visualizing, the motion on the court. That's one arena where it's really common, really clear. There's all this evidence and it's normal. Like you wouldn't get to the Olympics if you weren't constantly visualizing your success, right? And so I feel like the same is true in life. Like if you want to have, a life that you like, a life that you want, why would you, I love what's the worst that could happen, but why would you not visualize that? Why would you rather visualize what you don't want than live in an imaginary world of your perfect life?
What's the best that could happen?
Exactly.
Yeah, why not look at that?
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely love your brand. Those colors exactly were the colors for Lukewarm Productions. So Lukewarm Productions is the LLC. And when my now husband and I started the business, we started the business before we started dating. So I was like, I don't want you to piggyback on my last name. So we changed it to Financial Potion. But those colors, when I looked at those colors, I was like, those are my old colors. So tell me the tale behind your brand.
I love those colors. Yeah. So, when I left my job at the university, and I was trying to come up with what do you call a coaching place? And my name was, the URL was taken. There's a very famous New York Times journalist with my name. So that was taken. And so I was like, okay, I got to come up with something. Yeah. And I loved this idea of remixing because, even as a professor, my area of expertise was always interdisciplinary studies. How do you see things from multiple angles? How can you see something in a different way? And that is, that's at the heart of solving pretty much any problem. You've got a problem with something, how do you see it differently? And now you can fix it because you see the other side, right? And so there was this idea that it's really just a remix. Like that's all you're doing. You have everything you need inside you. Your subconscious knows what you want. It knows how it's sabotaging you. It knows all this stuff. All you need to do is remix it.
Yeah.
You are perfect just as you are. You just need, or a lot of times what I see with clients is they'll be like, I'm this and I'm this, and I can't see how they fit together, which was every single student I ever had. We would make them pick 2 concentrations in our program.
Interesting.
And so the idea was you're going to mix things together. Now the colors, I just love the colors.
It's just fun. I always tell people when you're picking a brand, you got to pick a brand of colors you like because especially if you're doing video, you got to wear those colors. You got to be around those colors. And so
it is fun. I can pick any hot pink shirt, show up on stage and my photos are branded.
Yeah.
So that's great. But more than that, especially once I settled on hypnosis, I think a lot of hypnotherapists and a lot of people who do even Reiki and energy work and things like that, the brand is very relaxing and mellow and calming.
Therapeutic, spa, meditation.
Exactly. And I tried to do that first too, actually, until I realized absolutely no one comes to me for relaxation.
Right.
They get relaxation, but I am not a subdued, relaxed kind of person. I am a loud, flamboyant, you come to me because you want some sort of energy.
Because you want to unlock rapid results.
Exactly.
That's what you're coming for.
So I was like, the colors and the branding and everything about it, I really wanted it to be, you got the dots and everything. I really wanted it to be kind of Matrix futuristic kind of.
Okay.
100% you can't, this goes back to the, bucket list thing. You can literally have anything you want. Anything. I do it. When people go on vacation with me, they're just like, wow, I've never seen it in action. But I'll you want a cabana in Vegas today? And they're all booked and they're $1,600. Here's one for free, right? That's the kind of stuff that happens with me because I know how to create my own world.
Nice.
And so it's kind of meant to evoke that of like, what is the world? What is the life? What is the future? What is the full spectrum, 5-dimension reality that you want to have?
Yeah.
And, reclaim your power and let's get you there.
Definitely. It also reminds me, so remix coaching, when you think about remix and the tales you tell yourself. I have one client, Susan Drum, she wrote the Leaders Playlist. And in her book, she talks about how we all have a soundtrack in our mind that we probably heard from childhood, whatever that childhood trauma, that soundtrack is, that just keeps playing in our mind. And it's a matter of choosing a different song. Or maybe in your take, it's a matter of remixing that song. Maybe keep the same beat, change the lyrics up. And
Exactly.
there you go. You have the story you should be telling yourself to help, unlock rapid results and get to your goals.
This all ties together so beautifully, the tales of Taylor and everything. It really just is a story, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a story running in your head about whatever is going on in your reality. And you have a story about where you'd want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And all you need to do is find the story that bridges those things.
And not compete against them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you really just you're always telling yourself a story, and you really just need to figure out what story you can tell yourself that actually serves you and gets you where you want. Because it's all stories.
Yeah. And so are you almost like the ghostwriter then for people, helping them craft their
I
life
love that.
stories?
I love that. I was trying to, speaking of branding, I'm trying to come up with a better name for my library than the Self-Hypnosis Library, right?
Yeah.
And the only thing I can think of is, bedtime stories for your subconscious mind kind of thing.
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm still working on a name for that, but that's what they really are, right? They're like, and humans, oh my gosh, humans, we need this so much. So I am going to geek out for a second.
Okay,
because this is super cool and relevant. They say that the rise of podcasts and audiobooks is actually meeting an evolutionary need for human beings because we evolved to tell stories around the campfire.
True.
That is how you survived, on the savannah, is that you were able, that's the only reason we did survive is because we were able to pass down knowledge in the form of stories.
Communication, the paintings in the caves.
Exactly. And so that meant more than one generation was able to actually pass on the knowledge, and you're able to accumulate it. And so, in this crazy world where we're not really sitting around the campfire too much anymore, these things like podcasts, like audiobooks, like guided meditations, they are this fundamental way that your brain needs to interact with the world. Like, it is coded in your DNA and your evolution that you need to hear stories. Mm-hmm. And that stories are the language that your subconscious mind speaks.
Yep. So much that if we don't even hear the end of the story, the brain will make up the end of the story. We like having completion. We like having, definitive things. And so
your brain is a pattern-making machine. It will put a story where there is none.
It will fill in blanks, even if they're not correct. But to the mind, it might feel like, okay, that does make sense. So what are some of your favorite tales you've ever read or watched? So your favorite movies or books?
My gosh. So funny. I was telling my husband yesterday that if somebody ever asked me this, I can't answer. But because we were talking about it yesterday, I can.
There you go. Timing.
There's so much. I used to work in a bookstore and I loved it. But I always go back to my favorite book as a kid was The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster. And it's got this blue cover, and it's about this kid named Milo, and he's bored out of his mind. And now that I'm saying this, it makes so much sense. Oh my gosh. He's bored out of his mind, and he's like, I don't want to play with any of my toys or whatever. And the toll booth shows up, and it takes him into this fantasy world, of course. Okay. And the reason I loved it is because it's like the geekiest novel you could ever want for like a 10-year-old. It's probably 4th grade. Because the whole thing is all of these different like plays on words.
Okay.
So like, he jumps to the island of conclusions because he just made like an assumption and like the whole car jumps and he ends up on this island, and they're like, how do you get off the island and all this. And so there's there's just all these different worlds and all these different like really funny, really smart like twists on how we use language, which
that's fun.
I've just always been obsessed with as well. So I don't know why. But it's this magic story of thinking about things in a very different way than you would otherwise. And I have not realized that until just now.
Nice. That's excellent.
Yeah.
How about a favorite movie? Do you have a favorite movie at all? Being in video, I've gotten more into reading in my adulthood, but as a kid, man, it was hard for me to pick up a book. I was definitely more into the videos and TV.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of the opposite. When I think about everything I've ever watched was when I was very young.
Got it. Yeah.
I don't do very many. And it's actually probably because of hypnosis too. So movies and TV, they're a hypnotic device. You have to suspend disbelief,
right,
and distract your conscious mind to be fully in the story.
Or you just are a person like me who can't go to a movie theater because you're just talking the whole time about the lighting, or if there's a continuity issue.
That's my husband. He is a video broadcast engineer, and so it's impossible to watch.
Yeah, we're hard to watch movies with.
Yeah, but I struggle watching movies now because I have to read subtitles, and that means reading it's the equivalent of reading an entire book at someone else's pace, basically.
Yeah, that's true.
But I love the good old comfort stuff from the 90s. So I'm highly likely to put on something like reruns of Frasier.
Okay, Frasier.
And just hang with my favorite characters, right?
Okay.
Imagine that I'm part of the scene. And actually, this is the problem with movies for me is 99% of the time, if I watch a movie, I am so primed now in this hypnotic stuff that I will just be in the movie.
That's
and
fun. I wish I could do that.
If it's horror or even a little sad or something like that, I will be in it for days.
Oh man.
So yeah.
Granted, kids have made me weak. I used to never cry. And now ever since having my kids, I cry all the time. You guys made me weak.
Yeah. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
Was 100% true for me as well.
Oh man! So warning, any women out there, if you're about to be a new mom,
I have no idea why I'm crying.
I know, it's so weird. It could be about anything.
I think I also used to watch movies more when my kids were young because I'd watch them with them. So it ended up being a lot of kids movies. I'll go back to high school kind of cult classics, Empire Records would be the first one that comes to mind.
That's a good one.
I can, quote every minute of that. And sometimes that goes on for comfort as well. But it's mostly kind of the ones you'd maybe expect. Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings kind of stuff.
Right. Geek out with some stuff. There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Very fun.
Or really science-y movies that too.
Nice.
I'm much more likely to watch a documentary than a movie.
Documentaries are great. I do love to learn. So for myself too, with reading, I'm much more inclined to read any kind of, self-development book, finance book, teach me a something book than, to read something that's just for fun. Granted, I love stories and I love creativity, but when you only have so much time in the day, it's sometimes,
I have a ridiculous collection of, fiction books and things like that I want to read that I never get around to. I'm much more likely to pick up a self-help sort of interesting psychology or how to think about this or that or
history. Sometimes history is just so interesting to me too. I feel like it gets so glossed over in school. And then it's whoa, there's way more stories involved. I was listening to Hardcore History recently, Dan Carlin, about just World War II and but from the Japanese side. It's how often do you really hear from the Japanese side about the whole war and things? And
I hear it a lot, but that's because my husband, he's got a double major in video production and in history, and my master's is actually in European politics and stuff like that. So that's the study abroad programs and stuff. So I love that too. But I'm equally likely, the last 3 nights I've been watching, I've been on YouTube watching MIT's Quantum Physics 1 lectures. Oh. So I'm all ooh, electrons vibrate, but guess what? Everything vibrates. That's the state of mind I'm in right now.
Love it. Love it.
History, quantum physics, or just random, whatever.
All fun education, that's
right.
for sure. And amongst all your travels, where was the best food? I always like asking that so I know where to go.
My goodness. Okay, the reason I ended up in the hospital in Serbia is because I spent all my time walking around Bosnia with sausages in my pocket and just eating them.
Pocket sausages. All right. You know, so here we got the old people with the candy pockets, but over there apparently it's sausage pockets. Okay.
I had a student that last time who invited me to his family's house, and they made like homemade. So it's called cevapi. Bosnia is my answer to your question. Is Bosnia?
Bosnia.
Oh my gosh, go get cevapi from Sarajevo. It's my favorite place in the entire world. And yeah, so I had a student whose family invited us over for a fresh, like homemade dinner, and I basically just I had leftovers. It was probably was not the best idea, but I'd do it again.
You do it again, and you're alive.
Do it again.
That's the thing. You are alive,
right.
so it all worked out.
I'm alive.
Yeah.
I'm here. I don't know if I would be here if I,
you needed all those things.
I needed that hospitalization to really give me the time. I don't know if I would have stopped running. Those of us who decide that we're going to achieve something, or who get used to achieving things, really don't know how to stop running and reset. So, but yes, definitely Bosnia, Croatia, Serbia, you're going to get the same, absolutely delicious food all over there.
All right. So good food all around. Excellent. So if you were to write a book, what would be the title of that tale?
So I actually do have a book that I will be writing called Rapid Results.
I kind of had a feeling. Something inside me was like, I feel like she's already working on one.
I am. I really want to take this Be Limitless formula.
This is going to be the pitch for, when it is released. And
yeah. I'm at the moment forcing myself to leave that off of my task list. I have some really, really big things that I want to be able to do. And the book is kind of just a fun project.
Okay. And you said it's called Rapid Results?
I think it's going to be called either it's the Be Limitless formula that I've kind of come up with. And I think it's going to be called Rapid Results is my guess. But yeah, I have quite a few very good coaches who keep yelling at me. No, you need to do this first. No, you need to do this first. The book will be next. Maybe by the end of the year. We'll see.
Okay. So what are some other things you're trying to do before the book then?
Oh my goodness. Well, I have just signed all the papers to purchase a license and begin to create a local group for the Holistic Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, wow.
Here in the Phoenix East Valley.
That's very cool.
I am beyond excited. When I met the founder of this organization, I was full body yes. We do not have this here.
Yeah, it's very cool. You would think with just the Southwestern, the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts, I would assume almost there would have been something.
Yeah. So this is an organization that's headquartered in California, and they've got some local groups, kind of randomly spread throughout the U.S., but none here. And, the mission really is to help connect holistic entrepreneurs to each other and to the community. So to explain to the community, what is this, right? Kind of the same as where we started with hypnosis, but also, holistic entrepreneurs tend to be very, very good at what the thing is that they do. A massage therapist is a very good massage therapist, not the best accountant.
Right.
So to be able to connect the holistic community also to business resources, because as I'm very active in the National Association of Women Business Owners as well. And so it's going to be a very similar kind of vibe of, really providing services and support in this peer-to-peer network, but for the holistic community. And I'm so excited to get that started here in this community where I was born and raised, right?
Right. No, it's just amazing. And I definitely keep me up to date with that because I love working with holistic organizations. I'm very much into let's look at what we can do with nature first before any kind of artificial whatevers, So, yeah, that's excellent.
And, to that point, right, one of the things I love about this organization is there's no definition on that, right? So we're all inclusive. So, if you're a photographer, an accountant, or something like that who identifies as, someone who would be part of the holistic community, you're absolutely welcome. And yeah, so that's kicking off here in January. And then, I've got big goals for that for the whole year. And then, putting together my speaking schedule for the rest of the year and some other projects. I really like to take this Be Limitless formula that I have and elevate it probably a few more levels. I'm sure you never stop, right? So there's a few more levels I probably go with that. But trying for the very first time in my life to really narrow it down and just do a couple things and do them really well.
Okay.
Which is new for me.
Right.
I'm used to doing all the things, which most people still tell me I'm doing all the things, but it feels like a lot less for me.
Well, that's important too. Everyone's a little different. And for you, if it does feel a lot less, then it is a lot less. And just because it's a lot to someone else doesn't make it necessarily a lot.
Yeah.
And I know we've had the opportunity of meeting through NAWBO, so the National Association of Women Business Owners. So tell me, how did you first get connected with NAWBO?
Yeah. So when I was a professor, we have academic associations that are really crucial to bringing the field together. Same kind of peer-to-peer network where, you can imagine things are so specialized that sometimes you're the only person in one location who does a certain thing. And so you come together nationally to be able to find peers because they're at other institutions. And so I was really involved in nonprofit leadership in that version of my career. And I helped to found the 501c3 for my academic field. And so when I left, part of what happened with the whole what do I do now thing is what kind of service home is there for me in this new iteration of my life? What community can I begin to be part of and help to build in that way that I did in the academic environment? And so I actually ran into some of the women from NAWBO at Colleen Biggs' Elevate and Empower event in March. And this tells you how quickly, things can change. I met them in March and, everything in my life has changed since March. That conference was definitely a turning point because of the amazing people that I met. But I found them there and was able to kind of say, hey, I'm looking for a service home. Obviously, I'm a woman. I'm a business owner. This seems like, it's a nonpartisan organization that's focused on policy. And of course, I just mentioned my degrees are in European policy. And so it felt like a good fit. And I joined the board, so that was March of 24. And I joined the board in July of 24 when the new term started, and have been really loving planning the events and, working with the amazing speakers and really getting to know the women entrepreneurs in this community. It's just crazy to me. I've lived here my whole life and I've never known that many people locally. Yeah. Because academics are all,
it's
all
everyone's
abroad,
in their own sections too. It's like if you stay in the academic world, it's like everyone amongst the academia know each other. And then when you're in the entrepreneurial world, it's, it's so interesting.
But, degree in European policy, all my grad school friends are elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right? They're all international. And so it's just been really fantastic to come back into the local community and really get to know the women who are doing amazing things here. And it's something I hope to be able to take into the holistic chamber as well.
Definitely. And you've been doing a fabulous job on the board. You really have. I've had the pleasure of being part of NAWBO for many years now. And so I've seen multiple waves of board members and, organizational groups, and you're doing a phenomenal job. So thank you for everything that you do.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. And so as we're coming to a close, I would love for you just to leave our audience with, what's one thing that they could do to, help reach rapid results? Is it meditate once a day? Is it the visualization? What's that one step that they could take to get a little closer to those results?
Yeah, I can sum up my message in this. Whatever it is that you want, it doesn't have to be as hard as you think it's going to be, and it doesn't have to take as long as you think it will. So my number one start here thing is pick any area of life, any specific situation, anything at all that is not going how you want right now or that you want to see a change in, and ask yourself, what do I want to have happened? What do I want this to be? What do I want it to look like? What do I want? What do I want this relationship to look like? What do I want my bank account to look like? What does it look like if I actually, if it all worked out, what does it look like? And get yourself that, that positive vision instead of what do you not want? And then ask yourself, now what would it look like if it was easy? And if you do that and you're honest with yourself about really what you actually want, and you just feel into that, what would it look like if it was easy? Everything can shift right there. That's it.
Okay, so everyone start visualizing, what do you want? Stop focusing on the negative. Stop thinking about the what ifs and the worst cases. Think about the best cases. And as Andi said, what if it was easy? And so thank you so much for joining me today, Andi. This was such a pleasure, and I look forward to more future conversations together.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Awesome. Thank you for watching Tales with Taylor. Please make sure you like and subscribe to the Financial Potion YouTube channel to never miss an episode.